Why a video on the Mii Sword Fighter? Well, aren't they irrelevant? Aren't they just a crappy Mii character that no one cares about? Some people might have forgot that the Miis actually exist in the game. The Miis in Smash have never really been recognizable characters in the series. I mean, for very obvious reasons. They weren't even ranked on any tier list because custom moves were seen as a difficult thing to balance, and maintaining all 9 custom moves in each slot, definitely a challenge. A lot of people don't even know these are actual moves that they have. In the game, they're also banned online, so all jokes aside, because of them not being allowed in online, actually, even in most offline tournaments, they don't allow their metas to really be developed that much because of this. And I remember the moment when the brawler first started to get figured out, people were clearly realizing how cheesy the character could actually be. And I mean, you could just make him tiny and then choose the best custom moves and then voila, easy ladder combos. This is also Smash 4 at its peak, baby. Rage all day. Thing is, what about the other two? Pretty much thrown off the cliff as far as existence-wise because people just did not play the Gunner or the Sword Fighter. And these characters were extremely underdeveloped because people just thought they were really boring. And I'm saying that as it was literally tailored to their tournament results. As many people stated, if they were actually on the Smash 4 tier list, they probably would have been low tiers if they were legalized in this game. The amount of people just don't see their neutral options is really anything that's special. They lack a lot of top blast zone kills like the Mii Brawler clearly had, and they were just outclassed by many other characters in the game that do these similar archetypes like Link, for example, and they actually became officially legalized on Ultimate's tier list. And while at first people looked at their history as simply probably just repeating itself, the Brawler was clearly the best and still is a very good character to this day, but you could actually see that there was a tiny little push with the Mii Sword Fighter and the Gunner, as both these characters were actually nerfed but also more optimized in certain ways to make them better in this. So they left with the Mii Sword Fighter being relatively underutilized, and while he did get buffed, it was nowhere near as significant, and he was still seen as a low tier character when the game first came out. So the Mii Sword Fighter actually got a crazy improvement, some meta optimizations that really have showed that the Mii Sword Fighter actually has potential. It does remind me how Donkey Kong was optimized in Melee, but I know some of this stuff hasn't been proven yet and it's relatively early on, but I think the Mii Sword Fighter is actually a threat now, and it's amazing to see the progress for the character as he was previously seen as a low tier, and now there's actually hype surrounding the character. We've all seen it. I know most of you have seen this incredible video, and if you haven't, be sure to check it out because it's really amazing. It's definitely going to break down the nitty-gritty stuff of what the Mii Sword Fighter actually got, and I don't want to overshadow the video because it's amazing. So a long time ago, it's interesting to see something that this good can actually make a character a lot better in Ultimate's meta. Again, it's too early to tell, but I think it's going to improve the character's meta by a lot. And if you optimize the Mii Sword Fighter, you actually have a crazy punish game. If you look at the way the video clearly shows, like down tilt and down throw can lead into his up special custom that just, yeah, it just reminds me of Smash 4. He just kills people with this move. Actually crazy good at spacing considering if you choose the right customs that he can use, as he does have some decent options for sniping off stage or for zoning. But did I mention that he can just kill early in Smash Ultimate of all games? Yes, the Mii Sword Fighter was really not meant to be doing this back in the day. Here it is happening. It's kind of crazy. So we've touched on how the Mii Sword Fighter is now, but we do have to go back in Smash 4 and truly see how bad he was, because not a lot of people talk about how rough it was back in the day. If you guys want to get new videos, make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much. In Smash 4, they had some noteworthy strengths, such as having disjointed range and relatively decent combo ability and one of the game's fastest grabs of all time. And also their custom moves gave them a slew of just special moves that people probably forgot even existed.
This video is sponsored by Aniba. Aniba.com is a gaming marketplace with over 40,000 digital products and is continuously expanding to become your go-to platform for your gaming needs. Aniba.com offers the hottest deals on any title, old or new. There's discounts for games like Red Dead Redemption 2 to Minecraft to Mario Odyssey, Fortnite. They really care about customer satisfaction by offering 24/7 live support to resolve any concerns regarding a purchase. Whether you're a PC gamer or you prefer consoles, Aniba has you covered. Use the link down below to get started with Aniba.
Custom moves aren't by far some of the worst in the game, and yes, his moveset is really slow and laggy, and he even has really awful range for a sword character. I don't know why they did that, but they clearly did. And sure, having projectiles does balance this aspect out, but it's really funny that he just does not have range, yet he has a sword. And his smash attacks, his tilts, all these moves are just rather basic. They kind of make him feel like he's like an offshoot Link or something. And he could have had potential. I mean, it's not like these custom moves could have actually been balanced, right? It is Smash 4. Okay, that's obviously a joke. But you get an idea of how the character's moveset truly was just really clunky in this game. The Mii Sword Fighter is more at home in the air, having some very quick aerial attacks. Down aerial can actually meteor smash, and the Sword Fighter also possesses the fastest grab out of any sword characters. They also possess a decent combo game thanks to their moderately fast aerial attacks and the down tilt, which we're definitely going to see down tilt in Smash Ultimate. Okay, you've seen this move. And also the neutral air and forward air, all these moves lose viability once the opponent is above certain percents because they require bad DI in order to hit. And the opponents, a lot of opponents are just not going to get hit by these moves, especially considering his range is pretty bad. So the initial reception of the character was he was pretty much the most obsolete Mii fighter of the three, and he was acknowledged as one of the few characters of the game that would have been a low tier if he was actually allowed a competitive play. So there was actually a huge player base that did try to push the character, but it just didn't end up working out, as the Mii fighters early on in the metagame were somewhat viable here and there, but they ultimately just are outshadowed by many other characters in the game, and the Sword Fighter just doesn't have a range or defensive game to really deal with a lot of the other characters in this game. And also the whole thing with should customs be allowed in Smash 4 was another big argument on why the Mii Sword Fighter just wasn't seen a lot. Was just this whole argument lasted for such a long time. You were not going to see him in tournament. So even though he was pretty bad, he was just held down by the fact that he was a custom moves character. So despite having some disjointed range and pretty average attacks here and there, the ban restricted the meta of the Mii Sword Fighter, and really not many people played them at this point. Their approach options and their combo potential, their recovery, all these things could have been compensated with some buffs. It's just not really doing that much for the character, and he's overly reliant on making good reads, not having defensive tools that can actually keep up with many of the other characters in this game that could, just do whatever they want to him. While at first the Mii's choice of customs were definitely more up to the tournament, and also the Mii size thing was also something that people discussed a lot, as yeah, you can make your Mii really tiny in Smash 4, and it was really annoying to deal with, and you could also make them really big if you wanted to, kill people early or whatever. Even those cheesy aspects didn't really help that much, as mainly people just were told to run the default version of these characters to limit the cheese factor of them. So they actually ended up becoming more neutral as far as these movesets go. However, the expectations plummeted once again as they would go on and widely viewed as some of the worst characters in the game. They weren't really given that many buffs. Obviously, they weren't allowed in online play, so people rarely even fought against them at all. On the few tier lists, they would end up at 53rd, and then the first tier list, they would end up dropping to 57 on the second tier list, and then on the final one, they would actually be ranked as one of the worst default Miis in the game. It should be noted that the Mii Brawler was actually a decent enough character in this time period, and people were actually seeing the positives of that character, and the Mii Gunner and Sword Fighter was sort of just hindered by their flaws. So they were pretty stagnant as far as results go, and they just weren't really seen that often in tournament, and many people just forgot that the Miis were in the game at all, let alone the Sword Fighter. So as Smash 4's competitive lifespan ended, it was unlikely that the Miis would be added to any future tier lists because people just did not like dealing with the cheese, and they just saw them as really quirky characters that didn't work well enough in competitive play, unless you were the brawler, of course. So in the early metagame of Smash Ultimate, many people believed that the Mii Sword Fighter had a decent potential to be a viable character, but we would have to see, as there would actually have some frame data improvements, and they would receive some notable changes like better combo tools compared to the previous game, and some actually significant buffs to custom moves that stood out in particular compared to the other Mii fighters. Like for example, actually getting some KO power this time around overall led to the character being considered a high tier at best. It was often regarded as the strongest of the Mii fighters, or at least was debated to be between the Sword Fighter or the Brawler. This character was still pretty lackluster, disjoint range, below average speed and frame data, but for the Sword Fighter, this was actually good enough. This caused them to struggle with characters played more rushdown and significantly better disjoints than them, so the Sword Fighter was just outclassed by many of the other Sword Fighters that are just well in Smash Ultimate. There's so many Sword characters, why would you play the Mii Sword Fighter? So there would be some success here and there with the character, but ultimately it just led to the character just being seen as a laughingstock. It's pretty crazy how quick they fell off, as they did rise up really fast when the game first came out, but then over time they were just quickly seen as, yeah, just play somebody else. Play Roy, play Lucina, anybody but this character, please. The representation of the character was seen as just not good enough, and he was ranked in the D- tier in the first official tier list. But despite the lack of representation at top level, the character has received some high placements here and there. So there was some strokes of people actually trying to push the character in this time period. So they would actually have a slight rise on the next couple tier lists, but this was mostly due to the reassessments of other fighters within the D tier. It's interesting to see how the character truly progressed. People actually forgot that the character had some decent strides and success here and there during the transition to Ultimate, and yet here we are years later and we're realizing, wait, this character is actually insane now. They have some potential tools that could actually work really well for their Punish game. The Mii Sword Fighter stocks are really high right now, and that's just really because people figured out, like for example, using the up B custom as a way to trap people and then go for some cheesy kills with it, which is actually pretty rare in Smash Ultimate. I mean, the characters that have these cheesy touch of death combos are pretty well known at this point. I mean, we all know Luigi, but now Mii Sword Fighter gets to sort of join into that league of character that if they grab you or if they hit you with a certain string, you can actually die. And that's really insane for the character because he previously was nowhere near any of that stuff in Smash 4. He was not doing that any day of the week. It was really that bad. Some people might say, oh, these are just some unproven optimizations. They don't really mean that much, but with Smash Ultimate, I mean, these games are like data mined and like figured out like very, very quickly. So it's pretty insane that people have actually figured some improvements to a certain niche character that is probably going to rise in the meta because of this. Now, how much is the Mii Sword Fighter going to rise? That really depends on how much people play them, and if they do well results-wise, we'll definitely see that. But I still think this is a really interesting thing to note because in Melee it happened with Donkey Kong, it even happened with Captain Falcon back in the day. I mean, Yoshi is a notorious character where the more people that put time into that character, he just always goes up over time. The Mii Sword Fighter kind of getting figured out just really makes sense if you truly look at the people that were pushing that character and really trying to figure out how to optimize their moveset. So honestly, I'm all for it because I think it's a really interesting way to see a character develops because he was seen as a really bad low tier character, and then now he is, I don't know if he's going to be a high tier or anything like that, but we'll have to see. But I definitely think he can get out of where he is right now and at least go up a couple tiers. He at least has worthy enough of a chance of that. This video was essentially just realizing how bad and just underutilized he was in Smash 4, and now he's sort of reaching a new league where he's kind of a touch of death character that you can't sleep on. I mean, he kind of was that on some ways, but now with these new optimizations, he is a lot more deadly with this information being widely out there. It's just funny to see a character that was like so bad and was basically untiered because of the custom moves debate, and then also that character would have been pretty bad even if they were ranked on Smash 4's tier list. Now go to a character that is actually going to be more of a devastating threat. It's honestly really cool to finally see that. I love just the way that this could actually happen in Smash. Probably one of the best aspects of the game is when a character gets figured out in some way and that really improves their meta. It's probably one of the best things of just watching Smash even casually, of seeing these characters come up out of nowhere. Who knows, maybe the Mii Sword Fighter could be a top tier, but I doubt it, but who knows, honestly. Really, it's up to the people who play in the character. I think it's great to see that. All right, you guys, make sure to subscribe. There's videos down below if you guys want to become channel members. Thank you for watching. Take care, have a good one. Discord below if you guys want to join that. Thank you guys, take care.